When my mum passed away in early 2019, my whole world tilted. I wasn't just mourning the only parent who ever truly cared about me. I was thrown into the role of caretaker for my younger siblings. Our dad, Alan, had already retired by then, and his pension barely covered his own expenses, let alone ours. But that wasn't the only issue. Alan had never been emotionally present for us. Growing up under his roof meant walking on eggshells, absorbing his harsh words, and constantly trying to dodge his unpredictable moods. So when Mum died, I didn't even pause to think. I just stepped up. Emma and Sam were finishing high school. Troy was spiraling as usual. Bills were piling up and someone had to take control. That someone was me. I picked up extra shifts, cut my own expenses to the bone, and funneled every spare dollar into making sure my siblings didn't sink. I paid for Emma's tutoring, Sam's college applications, Troy's rent when he blew through his money again, groceries, clothes, you name it. I wasn't a saint. I was just a sibling who couldn't stand to watch his family collapse. I kept telling myself, it's temporary. Once they're on their feet, things will change. But the years kept passing, and nothing changed, except the weight on my back. Still, I never asked them for anything in return. Not a thank you, not even an apology for all the ways they'd leaned on me without hesitation. The most frustrating part? I didn't resent the responsibility. I resented how invisible I felt while doing it, like my sacrifices were expected, like I owed them my entire adult life because I was the reliable one. And through it all, Alan never lifted a finger, never checked in, never offered to help. He was too busy playing house with his new wife, Marta. Still, I kept going. Because someone had to. Alan didn't waste much time after Mom died. By the middle of 2021, he had remarried, a woman named Marta, who from the moment she entered our lives, treated us like we were inconvenient leftovers from his previous chapter. Marta wasn't subtle. She didn't try to connect with any of us. Her focus was entirely on Alan and whatever she could pull from his already limited income. Instead of helping him become a better father, or even acknowledging the fact that I was financially supporting his children, she doubled down. Together, they began pressuring Sam and Troy for money. It started small. Just a little help with groceries, or a short-term loan for medical expenses. But it never stopped, and it definitely wasn't short-term. They never came to me directly, maybe because they knew I wouldn't tolerate it. Or maybe because they were afraid I'd ask where all the money was going. They kept their manipulations targeted at the younger ones, the ones who still clung to some hope that Alan might suddenly become the dad they always needed. I watched it all unfold with a mixture of disbelief and anger. Alan never called to ask how Emma was doing in school or to thank me for covering Sam's tuition. But when it came time to guilt-trip them for money, he and Marta were relentless. I even found out through Emma that Alan once told Sam, "You wouldn't have anything if it weren't for me raising you." The irony nearly broke me. This man, who sat back while I shouldered everything, had the audacity to pretend like he was owed something. And Marta, she played the supportive wife role, nodding along, backing his twisted logic. All the while, I kept my mouth shut. I didn't want to blow things up for my siblings. I told myself it wasn't worth the drama. I told myself they'd figure it out. But deep down, something started to rot, a slow, quiet decay of trust and tolerance, and I didn't even realize how deep it had gone, until Emma took that trip back home. I used to believe that love was shown through actions, so I acted. I didn't just say I cared. I proved it over and over through every late-night shift, every overdraft fee, every time I passed up something I needed so my siblings wouldn't go without. But somewhere along the way, the lines blurred. What started as support turned into expectation. I became the default provider, the one they called when rent was due, when classes needed paying, when groceries ran out. It wasn't just that they needed help. It was that they stopped asking if I could manage it. They assumed I would. Sam called me once at midnight in 2022 because he'd forgotten a lab fee that was due the next morning. I paid it without hesitation. Emma called when her laptop broke. I bought her a new one. Even Troy, who barely kept in touch unless he needed something, came to me more than once when he couldn't hold a job. I wasn't keeping score, but I felt the imbalance growing. I was pouring everything into this family and nobody seemed to notice that I was slowly burning out. I never heard, "How are you doing?" or "Do you need help with anything?" Just more requests, more expectations. And still, I kept going because I loved them. Because I told myself that this was what family did. But deep down, a part of me started to resent how invisible I'd become. To them, I was a wallet, a fixer, a safety net, but not a person, not a brother who also had limits, not someone worthy of honesty, of gratitude, of inclusion. Looking back now, I think that was the part that hurt the most. I didn't need them to pay me back. I just needed to feel like I mattered as much to them as they mattered to me. And all of that came crashing into sharp focus the day Emma came home and sat me down with a story I wasn't ready to hear. Emma had always been the quiet one, thoughtful, observant, the type who didn't speak unless it really mattered. So when she came back from her trip, sat on the edge of my couch and said, "I need to tell you something about Sam," I knew it wasn't just gossip. She'd gone back to our hometown for a few days to visit some old friends and ended up running into Troy. It was a casual run-in, she said. Nothing serious. But somewhere in their conversation, Troy started bragging. He mentioned how Sam had come into some money and had been real generous about it. Gave to the church, helped out Dad, even passed some along to Troy himself. I felt like the room shrank around me. Money. What money? I asked Emma to repeat herself, and she did, slowly, like she couldn't believe it either. According to Troy, Sam had received a financial windfall, a significant one. No one had told me, not a word. Emma hadn't known either, not until that moment. She confronted Troy right then and there, and he confirmed it. Said Sam got the money a few months back and had already distributed a good portion of it, to everyone except us. At first, I didn't want to believe it. Maybe Troy misunderstood. Maybe he was exaggerating. But when I asked Emma if she was sure, she just looked at me and said, "He was proud of it, like it was some kind of secret reward." It wasn't the money that got to me, it was the secrecy, the calculated decision to leave me out of the loop, me, the one who'd been holding everything together for years. I felt something twist in my gut, confusion, anger, hurt. Why wouldn't Sam tell me? Why did everyone else get a piece of this except the person who gave up everything so they could stay afloat? I didn't even wait a full day before confronting him. I needed answers, and I needed to know what else they'd hidden. When I called Sam, he didn't sound surprised, not nervous, not guilty, just detached. I asked him directly, "Did you receive a financial windfall recently?" He paused for a second, then said, "Yeah, I was waiting until things were finalized before mentioning it." Finalized? He had already given chunks of it away. I kept my voice steady. So, finalized means giving 10,000 to the church, sending money to Dad for a fake eviction, helping Marta's family, giving Troy a slice. But nothing to Emma, your own twin? Or even a heads up to me? He sighed like I was being dramatic, said he didn't mean to exclude anyone, but he had to make quick decisions and trusted his gut. I was stunned. This wasn't just poor judgment. It was deliberate. He'd made the rounds, the church, our father, Marta, Troy, every single person who had never lifted a finger for him. Meanwhile, I was the one who paid his tuition, kept a roof over Emma's head, fed him, made sure he didn't drop out when life got hard. And now I wasn't even worth a conversation. What pushed me over the edge was learning where exactly the money had gone. Our father lied, saying he was being evicted. Turns out the money was used for Marta's father's burial. Sam didn't verify anything, just sent the cash. Marta even received a personal portion directly. And Troy? The same Troy who once stole from our dying mother's savings account? Sam gave him money with no questions asked. But Emma, the one who's about to start law school, who's been scraping by, Sam gave her nothing, not even an offer. That wasn't an oversight. That was a choice. He called it generosity. I called it betrayal. And I couldn't shake the feeling that, to Sam, I was never family. I was just a tool he no longer needed. So I hung up. Not with rage, with clarity. Something had broken between us, and I knew it couldn't be repaired. I kept going back to one thing, Emma, his twin. They shared everything growing up, birthdays, clothes, secrets. If there was anyone Sam should have thought of when that money landed in his hands, it was her. But she got nothing. Emma had always been the quiet backbone of the family. She never asked for much. She studied hard, helped me with chores, looked after Troy when he got out of hand. And now she was preparing for law school. We'd been working on her applications together, budgeting for fees, trying to figure out how to cover tuition. And Sam, who had more than enough, forgot. When I brought it up, he brushed it off, said something like, "I was overwhelmed with decisions," or "I assumed she'd be fine since you're helping her." I couldn't believe it. She was his sister, his twin, and he'd thought of everyone else before her. People who'd taken advantage of him, lied to him, used him. But Emma? He couldn't even send a few $100s her way. It wasn't just a lapse in judgment. It was telling. I started replaying everything in my head. Every time I covered for him, every moment Emma stepped in to defend him when Dad turned cruel, every dollar I spent to get him through school. And now, at the first real chance he had to show gratitude or give back, he ignored the two people who had carried him the most. What hurt the most wasn't the money. I didn't need it. I was doing fine on my own. It was the dismissal. He had something valuable, and instead of honoring the people who supported him, he handed it off to those who never deserved it. And when I confronted him, he didn't apologize. He justified. That's when I realized this wasn't just about selfishness. It was about who he chose to value. And clearly, neither Emma nor I were on that list. Emma tried to keep things quiet. She never meant for it to explode. She just told me because she thought I deserved to know. But once Sam realized the truth had made its way back to me, it didn't take long for the rest of the family to spiral. A few days later, Emma called me crying. Our father had phoned her, furious. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't care about context. He just screamed. He called her a destroyer, said she'd ruined the family, shattered the peace, and disrespected Sam's blessing from God. He accused her of stirring trouble, of dividing the siblings, of creating conflict where there was none. Emma was speechless. She kept repeating, "I didn't lie, I didn't exaggerate. I just told the truth." But none of that mattered. Dad had already chosen sides, Sam's side, Marta's side, Troy's side, not ours. I sat there listening to Emma sob over the phone, and something inside me snapped. Not from anger. This wasn't rage anymore. It was something colder. Resignation. They had all revealed themselves, one by one. Sam, who could erase his twin with a shrug. Troy, who bragged about money he didn't earn. Dad, who ignored years of my sacrifices and jumped at the chance to paint me and Emma as villains. And Marta, always in the background, never saying much but always benefiting. I told Emma she did nothing wrong, that telling the truth wasn't a betrayal. That what hurt them wasn't what she said. It was that they were finally forced to see how ugly their choices looked in the light. But Emma was shaken. "Can't we just fix it?" she whispered. "Maybe if you talk to them." I couldn't. I'd spent years fixing, carrying, silently enduring. And now the same people I had protected for so long were tearing down the only person who dared be honest with me. That was the moment I knew what I had to do. I sat alone in my apartment that night, Emma's voice still ringing in my ears, and stared at the wall. For years I had held this family together with duct tape and desperation. I gave them everything: time, money, emotional labor. And now they were tearing apart the only person who had been honest with me. I didn't make a list. I didn't write a speech. I just started dialing. First, I called my father, told him I was done. No more conversations, no more visits, no more fake family dynamics. He tried to argue, but I cut him off, said I didn't need his version of unity that depended on silence and manipulation. Next was Sam. He answered like nothing was wrong. I told him I wasn't angry anymore, I was finished. I didn't yell, I didn't demand apologies. I just told him I was done giving energy to someone who could throw me and Emma aside so casually. Troy didn't even answer, so I sent a message, short and final. No more contact. And Marta? She never responded. Maybe she knew this moment was coming all along. It wasn't rage that guided me. It was clarity. I had spent years building a family that didn't exist. I kept telling myself that one day they'd show me the same loyalty I gave them, but they never would. Cutting them off wasn't revenge, it was survival. The only person I reached out to afterward was Emma. I told her she didn't have to choose sides, but she did anyway. Said she couldn't stay connected to people who treated us like that. We were the only ones who told the truth, the only ones who didn't play games. I slept better that night than I had in years, because for the first time, I wasn't carrying anyone else's weight. I was just standing up for myself and protecting the one person who ever protected me back. In the weeks that followed, the silence was louder than anything I'd ever heard. No calls from Sam, no messages from Troy, no half-hearted guilt trips from Dad. For the first time in years, my phone was quiet, and it was peaceful. I focused on Emma, helped her finalize her law school applications, found a few scholarships she hadn't noticed, and started budgeting for her tuition again. She offered to take out loans instead to not burden me. But helping her didn't feel like a burden. It felt like a choice, a good one. Meanwhile, I started reconnecting with parts of my life I'd abandoned. Friends I hadn't seen in months, hobbies I'd dropped. Even sleep felt different, deeper, more restful. Like my body finally believed it was safe to let go. I had always thought cutting off family was something bitter people did, that it meant giving up, that it would leave me hollow. But it didn't. It gave me room. Room to think without guilt. Room to feel without bracing for disappointment. Room to remember who I was before I became everyone else's solution. Emma and I still talk almost every day. She checks in on me as much as I check in on her. And it's mutual, equal. No expectations, no emotional debt. Sometimes I wonder if the others ever feel regret. If Dad realizes how far he pushed me. If Sam ever stops to think about how he erased the two people who had always been in his corner. But those thoughts don't stay long, because the answer doesn't matter. I'm no longer living for their approval. I'm not waiting for apologies. I'm not hoping for change. I gave them more than enough chances, more than most would have. Now I'm finally giving myself a chance to live freely, to love without resentment, to breathe without carrying 4 other people on my back. And the freedom tastes better than I ever imagined. I didn't want their money. I never asked for credit. I never held receipts. All I ever wanted was honesty, a little respect, the kind of loyalty I gave them freely for years. And when Sam got that windfall, it wasn't about the money. It was the perfect test, the moment to show whether I mattered as more than a safety net. Instead, he handed out generosity like candy to people who had never shown up, and when it came to me and Emma, he went silent. Then Dad, who had never provided a dime to raise his own kids, attacked Emma for telling the truth, blamed her for breaking the family, while he and his wife reaped the benefits of Sam's secret payout. All of it made me realize something brutal. They never saw me as family, just function, just utility. And once they didn't need me anymore, I became disposable. So I walked away. And now people are saying I'm heartless, that I should forgive, that I shouldn't cut blood out of my life. But where was that family bond when I was scraping together rent to keep Emma in school? When I worked 3 jobs so Sam could graduate? When Troy stole from our dying mother and still got a second chance? Where was all that love then? I'm tired of being expected to carry people who would never do the same for me. I'm tired of explaining why betrayal hurts just because it came from someone with the same last name. So, yeah, I cut them off. I protected myself. I chose peace over pain. Emma is still by my side, the only one who chose truth, the only one who didn't fold under pressure. That's the family I claim now. But sometimes, late at night, I still wonder, was I too harsh? Should I have handled it differently? Or am I finally just standing up for myself after a lifetime of being used? What do you think? Am I the asshole for refusing to forgive and walking away from my own blood?